All right. Hello. I'm so glad that you're here. Let's talk about all of the books that I read in the month of April. I read 6 books in April, and on the grand scheme of things, that is a lot of books. I know some people are out here reading a zillion books in a day, but I think 6 books is still a lot, especially if you are also just trying to live your life and you're having a busy time, or if you're like me and you have 2 young kids. Like 6 books is a lot of books, okay? But I did not have any DNFs this month, which I'm happy about. I had a couple last month, and at the end I will tell you which book is the book of the month for April, and then at the end of the year I will do a book of the month bracket and we will see what the book of the year will be. Super excited about it. The first book that I read this month was Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I got this book from the library. Don't forget to get a library card. So Malibu Rising, it is a literary fiction book, and I read it as a buddy read with a few of my friends, and we used the Storygraph buddy reads feature so we could talk to each other as the book was progressing. All 3 of us just burned through this book. I have read 2 other Taylor Jenkins Reid's book. I have Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo on my shelf. After I'd gotten it from the library, I had to buy myself a copy because that was a 5-star book for me. And I've read Daisy Jones and the Six. And by the time we got to Malibu Rising, I've realized these books are set in the same universe, but they are decades apart. Also in this universe is Carrie Soto is Back, which has been on my TBR and I will be reading this summer. And I just thought that that was so fascinating that they're all set in the same universe and you have a few crossover characters. Even though you don't have to read them in order, I just so happened to read them in the order of the decades, which was super fun. And I think knowing that made the read of Malibu Rising so much more interesting because I had background for some of these characters. So in Malibu Rising, we are following these 4 siblings. Mainly, we are following Nina Rivera, who is the oldest of 4. She had a famous father who had left her mother to raise these 4 kids, and he was in and out of their lives. And the biggest thing for them is that they lived on a beach. The 4 of them really bonded over an abandoned surfboard and they all began surfing. And through surfing, they have found a love, they have found connection to each other, and a few of them have found fame. Nina herself, she begins a modeling career because she was kind of discovered out in Malibu, as you can assume that this book is set. And she gets kind of discovered while she is surfing, and now she becomes a model. They had started a tradition of having a summer party, summer bash, and as they climbed through fame, now they continue to throw this party, but because they are now famous, it is so much more out of control. We're in the big mansion, wild things are happening, and we're kind of following through this heart-wrenching story of these siblings and their abandonment from their father, who is also famous, but also now they're rubbing elbows with famous people. They feel kind of like overwhelmed by the whole thing. And then we get this sense of, is this really what I want? How do I get what I want? This book takes place over the course of a day with flashbacks to give us like a little bit more backstories on the kids growing up. But when we are in the present time, you are picking around to different points of view throughout the different chapters, which I thought was very interesting. It doesn't always like lend to the storytelling as much. Like there was a chapter about one of the women that had shown up and came, and she was having like one last wild night before she went home, and it was just kind of like a blip, but it's so interesting to take a look into and peek into all of these characters' lives, even though they weren't like the main focus of the book. I thought it was an interesting read. I gave it like a 4-star experience. If you are maybe newer to like the literary fiction kind of game, where it's not so much like a start to finish story, beginning, big thing that happens, resolution, it doesn't really have that. It has more of like human condition, feelings of loneliness and desire, and trying to fight against what people expect you to be. And if that is something that you're interested in, I would say for sure go for it. If you've never read Taylor Jenkins Reid, I probably wouldn't start with this one. My heart is with Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and I think that that would be a better introduction to her writing, having read those 3 books by her. They are all written very differently in very different styles, but I think that her storytelling voice comes through very clearly in all three of them, even though they are written so differently. And there are some heartbreaking things that happen in Malibu Rising that I was not prepared for. This one did get me a little teary. I think I did do a little bit of crying in this one, but it's made me want to read Carrie Soto is Back, because she gets mentioned in this book. Tell me more, Carrie! I need to know your story now. So I'm excited to read that one. I did not realize how hard it was going to be to try to summarize that book. It's not so much a story. The ending felt abrupt also, but still good. The second book I read this month was The Night and the Butcherbird by Alex E. Harrow. This is a fantasy short story. This is 36 pages. This is, you can crank it out in a day. I do love a novella or a short story, like a one-off short story in between books. I think that it's nice to complete a story in a day or an afternoon without taking up like a lot of your day, and you get to have a story and you get to like mull it over a little bit. And it helps break it up, because I do want to get back to my goal of reading chunkier books this year. So this kind of helps break up those books that maybe take a lot more focus, and it's just kind of fun. It had an interesting monster feature in it. I thought that it was written interestingly. It said it was fantasy, but it almost feels almost dystopian, but like not quite. I think it's just the community setup and like and how that community interacts with the world. And I feel like it has a much more abstract, political, deeper meaning to the book. There are these demons, and they're trying to figure out a way to eradicate and keep out the demons in the society where people don't live to be that old. They don't have access to healthcare, medicine, and things like that. And we hear most of the story, I think the whole story, we hear it from the perspective of someone in the town who has like a political station. Like they have a community job, but they're like 17. Like they're young. They've been married. Like I'm pretty sure they were 17. Like once I read these books and I go on to the next one, like sometimes I lose a lot of the details, even though it's such a short story. It is a young community because you can't live to be older, because there's no health system to help facilitate that. And they meet this knight who comes in to help eradicate a demon in the area, and they're back and forth about this demon and what it means, and the eradication of it. So it's interesting. Again, it's only 36 pages. It is on Kindle Unlimited, so if you already have a subscription to that and you want an afternoon read, you want to read for how long it takes you to read 36 pages, it was very interesting and very abstract. Felt very abstract to me, at least. So I would give this about a 3.75. The third book that I read this month was Heartless Hunter by Kristen Kierkegaard. I don't have my phone on me, so I can't like check pronunciations at this second, so I hope that that's like ballpark at least. This is a fantasy romance. You might have seen it around if you are on the internet kind of peering at what everyone is reading, because this is the first of a duology. This is very popular at the moment because the second book, Rebel Witch, has just come out in the last couple of months, and I read this on Kindle Unlimited as well. And because this first one was so easily accessed and the second one was getting a lot of attention, I decided I would give this guy a little look-see and see what it was all about. And it was so much fun. I already knew that it was witch hunter and a witch, and we're trying to play a little cat and mouse with each other, and there ends up being, you know? But I thought that it was such an interesting and very clear magic system that is being used in this, and how there has been like a power shift where witches were once in control, and maybe those witches who were in control were not so great, and then the power has shifted, and now that Witchcraft is an absolute abomination. Anyone who has it can be, and it's easily confirmed, but our main character finds a way around it and is hiding right in plain sight as an upper class lady, but at night she is helping to free other witches. And because she is starting to get to marriage age, she's like, who can I marry in this upper class that would make sense but also afford me access to help more witches who are being captured? Oh, how about this witch hunter, the most dangerous man I could possibly pick. Also, my best friend's brother. I don't know if that's a good idea. I don't know. But this was such a fun read. I had a lot of fun with it. I am looking forward to reading the second one for sure. Very excited to get my hands on that. That will probably be a library book find. And I would not be surprised if I buy myself this duology. Because if you are new, I don't want to necessarily buy all of the books that I read. I'm not interested in trying to cultivate a library. I would love a collection of books that I love and feel good about lending out to my friends if they are interested in it. I don't want to hold on to books that I'm not going to read or that I did not like. I just don't want to do that. I like to borrow from the library and then buy the books that I really love. My kids have also learned that that's what I'm doing, and they were flabbergasted one day when I think we were watching a video of like a book haul, and he goes, but she's never read them before. She didn't get them from the library first before she bought them. Which I just thought was so cute. But I could see myself buying Heartless Hunter. I am enjoying it, and the books are also very beautiful. But Heartless Hunter, I would say that that was like a 4.5 read for me. It was very fun. Okay, a book I was not expecting to read as soon as I did was Carl's Doomsday Senerio by Matt Dinniman. This is the second Dungeon Crawler Carl book. This is 2 of 7. I am planning to read this entire series. This is one I'm definitely interested in sticking to. It's just been so fun and different from anything I've ever read before. If you don't know, it is a lit RPG book. So it has a lot of like RPG language, like role-playing game language happening in it, which has taken me a little bit of time to adjust to. I did read this on Kindle Unlimited, so it's been very easy to access, and I have already added the third book to my library, so I'm very excited to get started on that once I stop drowning in my current TBR. This book is the shortest book in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series, and I started looking ahead, and it's a good thing that sometimes I read short stories because we're getting a couple 600, 700 books coming up in this series, and I would love to finish it before the end of the year. I don't want to go too much into the what happens in this book because obviously as we go on from the first book, if you haven't read the first book, I don't want to give something away in the second book that would affect your reading of the first one. Just know that it is very fun. It is alien apocalypse. It has gameplay pieces to it. He goes into this underground dungeon that is set up all of a sudden by these aliens, and it is being broadcast to the universe. Your goal is to go down each layer of the dungeon. The further down you get, the better off you'll be at the end of it. But there are lots of dangers in the dungeon. There are different groups, mobs throughout the dungeon that you have to fight. You need to level up your experience, and along the way he is running into different humans that are in this game, some of them willing to kill other humans that are in this dungeon with them. And he ends up going into this dungeon with his ex-girlfriend's Persian show cat, and it's just an entire adventure between him and Princess Donut going through this dungeon trying to work their way out. Obviously 7 books. You can imagine Carl is still with us. We're gonna imagine that Carl's in all 7. I don't think that that's giving anything away. Just the Princess Donut of it all just adds such an interesting layer. This one has a little bit more universe politics, like what's happening outside of this game. It is gory. It is a bit crude, so just be aware of that. if you're thinking about reading it. If that's sort of language and content aren't for you, then this might not be it. But if you are interested in looking into something a little bit different, maybe a little bit outside of what you're used to, I'm loving it. I'm having such a fun time. This is one that would make such a fun show series. I would watch this. I think my husband and I would watch this. I'm loving it. Having so much fun. I didn't bring a single prop for this video today, even though I do still have Malibu Rising downstairs, and I didn't bring my Kindle up to like flaunt around. The 5th book that I read was the only audiobook of the month. I think that's usually what helps bulk up my book reading for each month, because as far as this year is concerned, I've read either 8 or 9 books a month, but usually about half of those are audiobooks. And then with the novellas, that's how my number gets so high. I try not to skim read unless I'm having a truly terrible time and I'm nearly at the end of a book. I try not to skim too fast, and I'm getting better at DNFing, so. The 5th book I read was The Wedding Witch by Erin Sterling, and I did listen to it on audio. This is the 3rd and final book in the X-Hex series. I do have the X-Hex. She's right here. I read this one physical copy. I listened to the Kiss Curse on audiobook, and after I listened to the Kiss Curse on audiobook, and I did review that, I'll link that so you can see my dissatisfaction with it. I had said I will not listen to the next one. That was a lie. They switched narrators from book 2 to book 3. Now we have a new woman who has a UK accent, is my guess, somewhere in that region area. The Kiss Curse to Wedding Witch change in tone and writing and narrator made Wedding Witch so much more fun to listen to. It bumped it up an entire star from the Kiss Curse. The Kiss Curse I gave a 2.5. This I had like a 3.5 experience. I liked this narrator better, and I think the writing got better from book 2 to book 3. The hang up with this though, because the men in these books, you're following a different Penhallow brother each book, and kind of like their love stories, because this is a fantasy romance situation. We hear the narrator give the men Welsh accents, which would make sense, they are Welsh. The first 2 brothers, however, they are with American women from the first 2 books, and the narrator gives them very thick Welsh accents, and no one told her to not. No one was like, hey, these women are actually Southern. Maybe no on the Welsh accents. So no one caught that, no one told her, or she didn't pick up from the clues that these are not Welsh women, and that threw me off. But luckily it only happens in like either 3 to 4 chapters, a few in the front and like 1 at the end. And because her narrating gave a better listening vibe for me, I was able to look past it, but it does bring down her narration scores on Audible, which kind of sucks because she did a good job narrating. She just really did too big of a boo-boo for the accents for American women. Even though when we're following this book, we're following a Welshman and an American woman, and she gives Tamsin, the character in this case, an American accent because it's very clear that she is American. So that's nice, but these 2, she's a human, he's a witch. She procures magical artifacts, he needs magical artifacts. They end up working together, and we kind of like speed run their working relationship. So by the time we're getting into the story, they have known each other for a year. We just don't get to see a lot of that. We get to peek in and we get like the understanding of what their working relationship is and their personal relationship is before we get into the story bit. This is a time traveling romance story, which was fun. I did enjoy that. And from this book, which is like I said, a romance, it does have the spicy spice in it. This book foreshadows it way better than the Kiss Curse does. The big issue I had with the Kiss Curse is that it's like flirty, and then 3/4 of the way through it's like bam, sex scene, and you're like, wait, 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 what? This one gave very clear language indication at the top about what you can expect for the spice scenes and coming up. That was so much better than the first two. It gave such a better indication that that is what kind of book to expect, which I really appreciated. That's what, like, I think that also helped boost its star rating, because even though I still expected it because I've read the first two, it was jarring in the second one even though I knew it was coming. Without that foreshadowing language, the little bit more crude and direct language in the beginning helped for it to happen in the end. So it was fun. The ending felt unclear to me, but I think sometimes these time traveling fluffs do. It's just like, and nothing, it's all fine. I'm like, okay, good, great, fine. I enjoyed the rest of the story enough that I was like, sure, sounds good, great, love that. The final book that I read this month, I finished it on the very last day of April on its due date back to the library. Was Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. This is the second prequel to The Hunger Games. So I think now this is book 0.5, and I think Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is like 0.25 or 00. I don't know how they're numbering it. So this is dystopian. I think at this point culturally, even if you haven't read it, you understand, you probably have a good idea of like what The Hunger Games is. And in this one we are following Haymitch, who we met in The Hunger Games as Katniss and Peeta's mentor for the arena. This was his time to shine, his time to give us his backstory. I made a whole video on just this book, so I'm not going to go too deep into it here, but if you want to see that, I'll make sure that it's easy to find. I did not feel as emotionally destroyed by this book as I thought I was going to, and I think that it has a mix of, we understand kind of who Haymitch is from the trilogy, and also I had that deadline to get this book done. So I thought the parts that were sad, that were meant to be sad, were sad, but no tears left these eyes. Not a drop shed. Yeah, I would love though to see this on a screen. I think it would translate amazingly to the screen. It has music in it, like lyrics in this book, just as you'll find in Songbirds and Snakes. If you haven't read that, there's a lot of lyrics in it. I felt that this one made less sense to have that many lyrics in it. Even though I think that Suzanne Collins' lyrics translated well from Songbirds and Snakes, the book, to the movie, it made more sense because of the characters from Songbirds and Snakes to have that many lyrics happening. But for this one, it didn't so much. And I felt like we were repeating a lot of the same lyrics over and over again, and it took me out of the resolution of the book. But I'm still excited at the possibility of these song lyrics becoming an actual song that I get to listen to and have in my ear holes for maybe too much, just because I'll listen to it over and over again like I did from the songs from Songbirds and Snakes. But because of the lyrics, I felt that the ending was too broken up and disjointed for me, and the epilogue didn't hit me the way that I think it was meant to or intended to. But overall, I would say it's like a 3.5 experience. I did enjoy it. I did think that it was fun to get a little bit more acquainted with characters from before, but I liked it. I did like it, but I liked it as much as I liked The Wedding Witch, so take that how you will. Is there anything else to say? Like I said, I did a whole video on this book, so don't forget to subscribe, especially if we're like reading some of the more similar books. I would be so interested to know if you've read any of these books, what are your thoughts on them? I'd love to talk about it. Let's talk about books. That's all I want to do. But looking back over the 6 books that I've read for the month of April, the book of the month is Heartless Hunter by Kristen Kierkegaard. I had so much fun. I'm excited for a lovely little fantasy romance duology. Had a great time. Let's add it to the collection of books of the month, and we are a third of the way there. 4 books have been added to the pool of competition for Book of the Year 2025. But that is going to be it for this month's book wrap up. Thank you so much for watching. Tell me, what was your book of the month this month that you read? Let me know down below, and I will see you in the next one.